Ladies and gentlemen, he set the world on fire when he came on our show just a few weeks ago before the election and presented two great books that you can buy and make a part of your library. You should. It should be bookends of your library. One is called The Christian Voter, the other is called The Deep State. And I'm going to tell you, they greatly impacted the election because one you saw before the election, the other you have seen after the election. The Christian voters did come out to vote for Donald Trump. Unfortunately, the deep state has been working on this for 4 years. Just like the overthrow of the economy, they tried to overthrow this election with a coup. One of the things that most people are asking right now is because we are sometimes weak in our faith, voter fraud, ballot harvesting. Where's the proof, Mr. President? Where's the proof? Joe Biden should be vice president. No more. He should be president elect and you should be leaving the White House. Well, Craig Huey is with us tonight, and I am so glad to have him back with us to talk about this particular issue. And I'm going to tell you, ye of little faith, get a little bit more faith. We got a lot ahead of us. Craig Huey, thank you so much for rejoining us at TECN TV, the Exceptional Conservative Show. You, my friend, gave us both the ends on the deep state and the Christian voter. But before we get there, I want to start off with some good news. Your thoughts on the fact that Republican women have won more seats and have flipped more Democrat seats to Republican than ever expected. Can you tell us, talk about that?
Absolutely. And hey, it's great to be back on your program. And let me just tell you that this massive turnout, historic turnout, produced a amazing change in the House of Representatives. So many new people came aboard, and many of them were women.
Yeah.
One of the ones, for example, is Michelle Steele from California.
Mm-hmm.
She ran in a district that had been taken over by ballot harvesting, had been taken over by the radical left, and she was able to flip that seat back to a Republican seat, despite being outspent 4-1. That was amazing. Because you see, all the money in the world is not going to buy you an election if you don't have more people coming out to the polls. And she was able to mobilize the people in an amazing way. You're going to hear a lot about Michelle Steele and many of these absolutely amazing women who now are in Congress.
Yeah, and I must say, Martha McSally, Michelle Steele was not afraid to tell the people that she supported Donald Trump. Just want to throw that out there.
That is absolutely right.
But Craig, you got a lot of people here who didn't see the 130,000 ballots being shipped in at 3 o'clock in the morning in Detroit. Didn't see in Philadelphia the signs going up over the window so that the Republicans couldn't see. And they're saying to you tonight, they're saying to me tonight, Ken, stop it. Voter fraud doesn't exist. It didn't happen. And Donald Trump, and these are Republicans who are telling me this,
Right.
We should just stop and work on the fact that we're going to have to find a Republican as president in 2024. What are your thoughts regarding that?
Well, Ken, there definitely was voter fraud. It was massive and probably historic in the amount of voter fraud that took place. Part of that was ballot harvesting, but much more than that. And what we're going to do in the next few weeks is see documentation after documentation about what this voter fraud consists of. You're going to learn about the ballot harvesting and why it can be so abused and turned into voter fraud. And here's the thing, Ken.
Yeah.
This has to be done. We have to be able to expose it. We have to challenge it. We have to take this absolute horrific voter fraud and make sure it doesn't happen 2 years from now. So whether President Trump prevails or not, whether he's able to switch the vote or not, That's going to be seen in the court. That's going to be seen in recounts. We're going to know that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But what's going to happen is a historic exposure of how broken this voting system is, how bad the voter rolls are, how ballot harvesting leads to fraud, and how we have to have greater security with the voting machines and consistency at the local level and the state level to make sure that these races are fair.
Now, I got to ask you, Craig, and you've been around in elections like I have for decades now, but
that's right.
Didn't anyone have, the mindset? And we have a cybersecurity division that deals with elections now that was put together by the Trump administration. But didn't anyone think it through that Dominion Strategies, the organization that owns the voting booths that people go to electronically, are owned by Senator Feinstein's husband, Nancy Pelosi's husband, and members of the Clinton Foundation? How come they couldn't put 2 and 2 together that this is not going to work?
Well, Ken, you nailed it, that it has all the appearances,
yes,
all the reasons to suspect that there's corruption within this software. And we don't know yet, but your big question is, why wasn't this anticipated? Yes. And here's the problem with the anticipation. There's so much going on, so much possibility of fraud. There's fraud that takes place that's easy to detect. It's usually done by people who aren't very sophisticated.
Yes.
The big problem is the sophisticated fraud that can be coordinated by the unions, big tech, an organized group that is large number. And they do it smart, and they do it careful, and they try to hide it. And so when you're in the middle of a campaign, I've been saying now for 2 years to Republican leadership, conservative leadership, libertarian leadership, to the Christian community, there's going to be massive fraud in this election. And here's why. I've written about what the fraud is. In my book, The Deep State, I have a whole chapter on voter fraud and how it's going to take place. And it happened. And the campaign was so chaotic, so unorganized, that they did not have all the preparation. And of course, also, they don't know how to mobilize like the liberals. The number of Democrat poll watchers so outnumbered the Republican, it wasn't even funny. I mean, it's just really not to put you into tears, because it tarnishes the transparency and it decreases the integrity of the election. So here's what needs to be done. Yeah. We need to be looking at this army of lawyers that Trump has right now. They're going to verify actual documentation of what the fraud is. And this myth that, there's nothing factual, it's just speculation, that's not true. Mm-hmm. The big question is, in the short amount of time, are they able to uncover the biggest of the fraud that might be hidden, such as software, such as something in the cloud, something where with the ballot harvesting, yes, you've got an army of volunteers for the Democrats and for Joe Biden who could be doing voter fraud with ballot harvesting. It looks legal, but it's not.
Craig, and I thank God that you're here tonight, because, I don't know how to directly explain the splitting of an atom as well as you, but there are people who are sitting around tonight saying, that's just one county, 6,000 votes in Wisconsin that switches. So it's just one county. Come on, Ken. I mean, you would have to have counties all over the country where you have 6,000 votes that switches over to go towards Donald Trump. Donald Trump can't possibly have a route to the presidency. I want to deal with question number one out of that explanation. Number one is it possible to coordinate and collude in election fraud? And then number two, is it possible that he has a way to win Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona to take away the presidency from Joe Biden?
Well, great questions, because let's start with the first one. How organized is it? Well, you could have a small group in Silicon Valley
Mm-hmm.
manipulating things, and it can be a very small group. And the smaller the group, the more secret it can be.
Yeah.
Now, what we do know is in larger groups, especially like with ballot harvesting. So, ballot harvesting, for those who aren't sure what it is, let me explain what it is.
Yes.
In about 29 states, ballot harvesting is legal. In 18 states, it's illegal. And in other states, it's really not well defined. Even in the states where it's illegal, ballot harvesting goes on. And what ballot harvesting is, it's people who are trained to go to door, to go to coffees, to organizations, and they go and they say, I'm going to help you vote. I'll take your ballot. You don't have to mail it in. You don't have to go to the poll. In this age, it's dangerous to go to the poll. I'll do it for you and hand the ballot to the voter register. And that's how they were able to do it. They had a massive experiment in California back in 2018. It flipped 6 conservative Republicans who should have won re-election. On election day, they had won the election. The day after, the balloting started coming in, and they lost the election. And not only that, it was from the top ticket all the way down to city council and school board. They had a voter guide. And so they would go to a nursing home, and they would say, I'm going to help you vote. And these are the people you should vote for. Maybe they filled it out themselves. Maybe the ballot harvester filled it out. If they filled it out and they put down Republican, they would either change that to Democrat, or they would toss it and throw it away. Nobody would know. And then they would take it. Sometimes they take 100, 500, 1,000 ballots, bring them down to the voter registration office, hand them in, and nobody knows who that person is. Nobody knows what households they went to. Nobody knows anything. They could have gone to an apartment, and knowing when the mail ballots were arriving, going apartment to apartment, picking up people's ballots, and people never got them. They could have gone to homes where they know that people are not there. They could have taken a look at who has mailed in a ballot or who's gone out to the polls, and then gone to that household and said, hey, you haven't voted yet. Give me your ballot. I'll give you a cup of coffee. You don't know what they could do. And that's why ballot harvesting, Ken, is not voter fraud, but it leads to voter fraud. And the unions train an army how to do it. The Postal Union, which is one of the most organized unions, one of the most radical unions. They back in 2016 they supported Bernie Sanders. In 2020 they supported Bernie Sanders. Then they flipped over to Biden, and they've had the entire union trained to how to be involved in going door to door and precinct. But also they can take a look who's a Republican household and who's sending in their ballot and toss it. There are so many problems with the mail-in ballot that it exposes itself to fraud, and it's not safe. And when all is said and done, we're going to find that there's millions of ballots that were mailed in that were never counted because they were lost in the mail system. There are millions of ballots who were never counted because they got the ballot, but the person didn't sign the back of the envelope the way they originally signed it. So there's so many problems, Ken, and that's why how do you prove collusion? You don't, because what they're doing with the ballot harvesting is legal.
Yeah.
But what they ultimately do is illegal.
Exactly. And see, the sophistication of this is what masks the detrimental nature of it all.
Yes.
There is one group, the Democrat Marxists, that are so sophisticated and so conniving that they are able to do this moment's notice. No one says there's a problem with it whatsoever.
Right.
And yet, the Republicans seem so naive that people actually want to steal an election. Or, heaven forbid, that they've done it.
Yeah.
Craig, you have been working with the Christian. You've done the book called The Christian Voter. You encourage people to get out. But if you could speak very quickly to the naivety of not only Christian voters, but conservative and Republican voters who don't believe it's as big as Donald Trump says it is.
Oh, yeah. So, Ken, let me tell you, I think it gets back to the fact of 2008. Obama, running for president, basically developed the most sophisticated marketing campaign in the history of America. He used marketing strategies to get voters to the poll that had never been used before, and very few businesses used yet because they were so new. In 2012, he took it to a higher level, did a better job. Not only did McCain not know what hit him and Romney didn't know what hit him, in 2012, he did things with Facebook and Google that are today illegal. And what he was able to do was identify data, who the persuadables were, who the solid vote was. And they would concentrate on this group of people. They didn't waste their time on people they had identified as opposing them. Christians, libertarians, conservatives, those who they knew would not vote, they never heard from them. And so this was carried, Hillary, this all fell apart. She didn't do this type of campaign. She did an old-fashioned campaign as if it was 12 years ago. And Trump did the most modern marketing. Well, in this election, it was a bit switched around. Trump didn't do as good a marketing as Biden. What Biden did is he did his best at organizing, getting people to the poll. Trump did not. And then what he did is he divided. Well, Trump was trying to get out Republicans to vote and conservatives and different people to vote. He did not do a powerful job with the Christian voter who in the last election voted 81% for Trump. And what happened was Biden and his organization spent $25 million to run ads, TV commercials, radio commercials, direct mail and email directly to the Christians to either suppress the vote or to flip Christians to vote for Joe Biden. And so it was a very effective campaign. The number of people who supported Trump this time, we're not sure yet. It looks like it went from 81% to 76%. Still a huge number. Yeah. But Biden was able to concentrate on that audience. But he also did more than that, Ken. Biden took conservatives and he identified conservatives. And he sent Facebook ads and Google ads, what's called pre-rolls. These are advertisements you see before you watch YouTube. And he also did addressable TV. He took his data of all the people who identified themselves as conservative or Republican or libertarian and ran ads specifically to them, talking about Trump and integrity, attacking Trump from a standpoint of a conservative voice, from a libertarian voice, to suppress or to flip the vote. It was a smart, intelligent campaign. Biden did very well in that. But here's the bottom line.
Yes.
I believe Trump would win if the election was fair. And if we didn't have the fraud from the ballot harvesting, if we didn't have other types of fraud, I think you would have seen a different situation. You talked about the fact that we had these amazing Christian, conservative Republican women winning the election.
Exactly.
In the House of Representatives. The Senate, we have to see what happens in Georgia, but I don't think the Senate's going to flip. I think that those seats are safe. It's going to remain a Republican Senate.
Yeah.
This election was not a blue wave. This was not an election that said we hate Donald Trump. This was not an election like that. This was an election where Biden was more organized, not only to get out legitimate votes, but get out illegitimate, illegal votes as well.
Craig, when people hear the term illegal vote, it portends the whole idea of illegal immigration. And, most people would say, I'm okay with my fellow man voting. Every vote must count. When people talk about an illegal vote, what exactly are they talking about? Are they talking about some illegal alien who's come across the border today and they gave him a ballot and said, fill it out, it's okay, you're with us, we're with you, we'll make certain that you get a free dinner or something? Or is there something more to illegal voting?
So illegal voting is when you have dead people voting. And we're going to find many, many dead people voting in this election. It's going to be verified as it goes on and they check the voter rolls. Illegal voting is you have many people who have moved from one state to another and they have 2 votes. Mm-hmm. You're going to find many people who illegally voted because they had multiple ballots. So that's the form of illegal voting. Now, there are problems with the registration rolls. In the state of California, at least 344,000 ballots were people who have died or moved away.
Whoa.
Now, enough to switch election in any of these states. And the problem is, here's what we have to correct in the next 2 years. You can talk about Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. You can talk about any of these states, and the voter rolls are what we call dirty, meaning that they are people who have died and people who have moved away. And I'll give you an example of two illustrations of how people can misuse the system on purpose. Mm-hmm. So when I was writing the book, The Deep State, I wanted to have a chapter that explained about voter fraud and document voter fraud that went on. And as I wrote that book, I had one of my assistants in my ad agency that I own. And I told her, go online and register your dog to vote. Mm-hmm. And she registered her dog. And as she registered her dog, she registered the dog at my office address. Now, here's the thing. It's illegal to have anybody be registered to vote at an office address. Number one. Number two, Ken, it's just not legal to have a dog vote. and this is the ballot that I got for the dog. Mm-hmm. So I have had 4 elections where I've had this ballot mailed to me. I could send it in. I haven't, but I could send it in and vote. And then I moved my office from California to Tennessee.
Yes.
And guess what? The ballot was forwarded to Tennessee. Ballots aren't supposed to be forwarded.
Wow.
And the other type of fraud for that would be illegal. Let me give you an example. We have a broken system in every state with the Department of Motor Vehicles where people sign up. And here's what happens in many states. They have on there automatic registration. You register to get a driver's license. When that happens, you automatically have the chance of being a voter. And you have to, in many states, opt out of being a voter. Some states, they automatically register you unless you say. Now, what if you're not here legally? And I don't care what country you might be from, but if you're not here legally, you get that ballot, that registration at the DMV, and there's a little box there saying, "I am a U.S. citizen." Now, if you're here illegally, are you going to check off the box saying I'm illegal or I'm not a U.S. resident? You don't want to do
No,
that.
no.
You'll go ahead and have I'm a legal citizen, and it's so corrupt by the politicians. In California, they knew that they were registering people who are not citizens of the United States, and so what they did is they changed the law from a felony to no penalty whatsoever if you're caught having done that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
This is the type of broken system that has to have immediate attention. And my fear is that a Democratic House and a Democrat president are not going to be, it's in their self-interest to keep a broken system. And then you've got, what is it, maybe 23, 24 states that have Democrats as the governor and as the Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to make the changes that need to be made in the next 2 years, but they have to. And if we want to have, honest election, here's the thing, Ken.
Yeah.
I love America.
Mm-hmm.
I know you love America.
Yep.
Democrats, Republicans, they should love America. And America stands as a democratic republic where there should be fair and honest elections that everybody can trust. Our trust in the election has been broken. Our trust in the system is destroyed. And right now, we've got to get that fixed. Throughout the world, people look to the United States as an example of freedom, an example of how to run an honest government and how to do an honest election. But right now, we're looking more like Venezuela than we are looking like the United States. And this
I am so glad you said that, because there are Democrats like Muriel Bowser who travels with hypocrisy to Delaware to party with Joe Biden in celebration of a fraudulent election.
Right.
And the image that is projecting to the world has to be that America isn't open for business, it's open for corruption. Am I correct?
It's heartbreaking. That should not be America. Every American should want to make sure that there's integrity in the election. And that should be our example to the world. And that should be something everybody can trust. And right now, we can't trust it. Right now, it's too broken. And right now, it takes massive effort on the national and state level to make sure that those things that are going to be identified in the next few weeks are corrected for the future. And while the Democrats know how to use the system and misuse the system and take advantage of the system, I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, or a Green Party. Yeah. You want to be able to make sure that the election is honest and reflects the reality of the will of the people.
I want to ask you very quickly, since we are closing out on election integrity, because I want to talk with you about the postal union and how there was a USPS worker who was caught trying to cross the border with Donald Trump votes, which I thought was freaking amazing, that you would be so bold as to do that. In terms of election integrity, you had 4 years where President Trump was called a Russian agent, was virtually impeached, was called a thief, a coward, everything but a child of God by the left. And they said, most importantly, that he had an illegitimate election because he won by the Electoral College. And yet, Mayor Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C. drives up to Delaware to celebrate with Joe Biden on Saturday night, hypocritically, of course, her doing that, to celebrate his Electoral College victory. I got to ask you here. There are those who want to eliminate the Electoral College. Should we eliminate it because of corruption, or should we eliminate the corruption to preserve the Electoral College?
So, great question. And for those who are watching, and this is a very heavy, complicated issue that you'd want to know about. My book, the Christian Voter, has a section on the Electoral College, but I also have a free article about the Electoral College on my website at craighuey.com. And yeah, anybody can just type in Electoral College and it'll come up. And here's the bottom line of the article. The founders of America were absolutely brilliant people that understood the corruption of the human heart. And if somebody can do something that would cheat or be wrong, they probably will figure it out and do it. So they created a system of checks and balances that is absolutely amazing to protect from tyranny, to protect from something that would be wrong. We are not a democracy, Ken. We should not be a democracy. We're a democratic republic. And what that means is this. We have laws of checks and balances to protect the minority from being oppressed by the majority. And what the Electoral College does is this is one of those checks and balances. That bottom line is this. Out of all the states, all these states will have an more equal say, more fair say of who's going to be president by having an Electoral College. That if you had it just as the vote of the people, for example, in the presidency, what you would be having is New York and California and a few of these East Coast, West Coast elitist states that have no respect for individual liberty, controlling every single election. And the rest of the nation is forgotten. The Electoral College protects every state, protects every person throughout the United States, and makes it more fair. And so, yes, we are not a democracy, and I'm so grateful that our founding fathers put this into place to protect us all.
Yeah. craighuey.com, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have him back in the next couple of weeks because there is news. The Trump administration and Bill Barr just announced that DOJ is about to investigate voter fraud in Pennsylvania and also in Nevada. You have the Trump lawyers who have gone to Detroit, who are in Philadelphia, who are in Georgia as well, in Arizona. This is huge, and they do have proof. It's the only reason that they want to go to court is to present proof. Right. You don't go to court to waste time. And so they have the proof. They can win. They have a pathway to the presidency. And Craig Huey is going to be marching with us along that particular route. Craig, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight and breaking down the atom splitting of ballot harvesting and voter fraud. God bless.
Awesome, Ken. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Huey, it is a tremendous honor and pleasure to have him. You have to get his 2 books. It's a bookend. Bookend. I'm telling you, bookend. You get the Christian Voter, and you also get the Deep State. You get the Christian Voter so you know why you vote for who you vote based on your values. You get the Deep State to understand how something as simple as voter fraud could literally change the direction of a presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you right now, based on Article 2, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution, Donald Trump will be president of the United States in 2021. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But you need to start, ladies and gentlemen, don't be sitting back next time around talking about Donald Trump can do it all by himself. You all need to get up off your gluteus maximus, get to the polls. You need to change the laws in the next 2 years in your state to make certain that you are more stringent on those voting. And I will tell you right now, while the House will not agree, I believe the Senate needs to put together a bill that says every federal election requires identification. I think it would change the pace of life. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more of the best right after this. Trust me on that one. We're about to have a little bit more fun.